and we're back in record time.
Well, welcome to Voices of Harpswell, Past, Present, and Future, hosted by Harpswell's Bicentennial Project and funded by the Maine Bicentennial Commission. In this series of interviews with people from all geographic sections of Harpswell, from all ages and interests, newcomers to those whose families stretch back generations, we hope to compile a picture of Harpswell today in this tumultuous year of 2020, the 200th anniversary of Maine's statehood. Today, we have with us a person who has made a big difference in Harpswell and whose enthusiasm and energy and sheer hard work has taken a program designed to assuage hunger and provide socialization in Harpswell to a whole new level. This is Surrey. Surrey, will you introduce yourself?
Hello, I'm Surrey Hardcastle, and I live on Bailey Island and very excited to be here.
Oh, that's great. Tell us a little bit about your life before you came to Bailey.
Sure. Well, we raised our family in Connecticut, and my husband and I had each spent a little bit of time in Maine and decided individually that it was sort of home to us. You know, I think there are some people who just experience Maine and they're hooked from the very beginning, and we were each hooked. So when we became a couple, there was no doubt that this was where we wanted to be. Unfortunately, because of different logistics, it took us a long time to get here. We have 4 children, and there was never really the right time to move, or the job didn't work, or whatever. So we retired here, and we had a great time in Connecticut. I was the director of a school and a psychiatric hospital there, and loved my job, so it was hard for me to retire, but knowing that I was coming here, eventually I got here. So.
Oh, nice. What year was that?
So, well, we bought our house in 1995,
Wow.
and then we took a while to get here. My husband retired sometime around 2000, and he worked part-time doing different things, and some of it part-time up here in Portland. So he was up here some of the time, and I was still in Connecticut, and we spent a lot of time going back and forth on the highway. So I came up every Friday night and went back every Sunday, 4.5 hours, if it wasn't traffic time, which of course was all summer, etc. So it was crazy, and my friends thought we were nuts until they came up here and they said, "Oh, we get it. We get it." I really felt as if I had a week's vacation just in the day and a half or so that I was here. So it was worth it.
Oh, that's great.
Worth
But you
it.
were really delighted to finally get here all the time.
It was wonderful to be in one place and to be where I really wanted to be, and to have Hugh and I living all the time in the same house. So that was about 2007. I retired in the summer of 2007.
Wow, you've really made an impact in 13 years of full time here. Well, so at first, the HA wasn't even formed till 2015,
Right.
but you were involved in other volunteer and community activities when you first were here, right?
Oh, sure. It's hard to live here and be isolated. It's an unbelievable spot. I'll say that when we decided to come to Maine, we looked at a lot of areas and knew that we were going back and forth to Connecticut, so we didn't want to be way up. But what we were looking for was a community. We didn't want to we wanted water, that was important to us, but we really felt that our number one criteria was it had to have a community, not just a house. So we had known about this area and came back to it and started looking in Harpswell. We just said, this feels community to us. And we bought a house on Bailey Island for a lot of reasons. And like many people here, we bought really a view and a community. We didn't buy a house. The house was basic, and we had to do a lot to it, but we knew that the priorities were there. So we moved in, on Labor Day, and immediately we're engulfed in the community. People are just so friendly and outgoing, and we felt that we were part of it all, the neighborliness of it. You know, you help me, I help you. It's really hard to be sitting in your house or doing other things when everybody around you is so open.
Well, and you're right across the street from the church.
Well, that was one of the first things we did. We became part of Islands Community Church, which was actually a new church at the time. I think it had only been going for about a year or so. There had been other churches in that area that had had some difficulties and had split off, and this was a new offshoot. And we became involved there. It's a non-denominational church, so it brings in people from all walks of life. And we fell in love with it because it was, again, community. It was what we were looking for. Not only was it a wonderful group of people, but the commitment was, number one, to supporting the community, and it still is. So Hugh and I both got involved there, and I'm head of outreach there. And it's just phenomenal. Like everything I've experienced in this community, it's a small community. It's not necessarily an affluent community. But when something needs to get done, it just materializes. I remember when we were first here, someone had a family who had some difficult situation down south, and they were moving up here to be with Mom in her small house with their kids. And the house had a roof that leaked. And one of the neighbors just walked around the neighborhood and said, "Hey, we've got to help this person out." Well, within a few hours, there was a contractor who was willing to do it for nothing, you know, for labor or whatever, and materials. And all the money was raised. Wow. And it was a couple of hours.
Wow.
And it was $5 here, $10 there, an occasional significant gift. But that's sort of been our experience the whole time we've been here. And the church is an embodiment of that. It happens all the time.
That's really great. Well, because you're here with Bailey since it was cut off. It didn't have the bridge until what? 1920s, late 1920s, yeah. That it really was into itself. But now it does feel more integrated into Harpswell, but that whole sense of community still survives in a good way, is kind of what you're saying?
Oh, I think so. Yeah. I think so. There's a lot of interesting stories that people have, and I think people have them all over town, not just on Bailey Island. But one of the stories that I love was when we started Harpswell Aging at Home, which we'll talk about later, I think. Yeah. But when this started in 2015, there were focus groups that met, among other things, in order to get a survey of what the town was, what was available in the town, and what people in town felt they needed. So one of the focus groups was specifically for fishermen. And my husband happened to be part of that group, and we had a facilitator doing that group. One of the gentlemen there was actually not a fisherman, but he had been a Navy officer and had traveled the world. He was born and brought up on Bailey Island, but had traveled extensively and come back home basically to retire. And he was an elderly gentleman. And as a warm-up question, the facilitator said to the whole group, "How long have you lived in Harpswell?" And this gentleman stood up and said, "Never lived in Harpswell. Lived on Bailey Island my whole life."
Well, there you go.
And so I think, it's historical.
Yeah.
Bailey Island was isolated, But other areas of town were isolated as well. There was no Mountain Road Bridge. Obviously, there was no Cribstone Bridge. So areas grew up unto themselves.
Well, but when you talk about the beginning of Harpswell, you get home, and that really wasn't a stretch for you because you were so imbued with the community-minded Bailey Island.
Yes.
So talk a little bit about the founding of Ha.
Well, I was not in on the very beginning, but came very shortly afterwards. I know that there were a few people in town who were very interested in getting something going to support the senior community. As we all know, Harpswell has become a very senior community. It's a destination for retirees, and the population that has been here for generations and generations is aging. So I know Dave Brown and Jess Maurer came together somehow and said, hey, we could do something about it. Why don't we start a grassroots organization? So that was in 2015. And the beginning of that was this survey that I spoke about. The survey was online. It was on paper. It was distributed to as many people as we could get it to in town. And a steering committee was formed, and I was part of that original steering committee. It's been a fascinating process.
Well, you've done a lot. Because you initially were part of the food committee, or did that evolve into you being head of the food committee, or did you start out with that?
It really involved, none of us had committees in the beginning. We were just a steering committee that was trying to figure out what should be done. And so it took a while for us to do the survey, to interpret the survey, and we had a lot of help doing that, to find out what the priorities were. And then we met and said, okay, here are the priorities. I guess there should be committees in those areas. So we didn't start out with a lot of committees. There were only a few, and I don't remember exactly which ones, but I know home maintenance and repair was one, and food was one. Interesting for me, the one I was interested in specifically was the socialization aspect. And we decided that that really had to take a back seat, that we would get to that, but we had to start with what we call the low-hanging fruit. Okay. And so I ended up on the food committee just because. Well, it's turned out that the food committee has been really the social committee. When people eat, they socialize, I guess.
Yeah.
So.
But when you started out more as a creating food as a part of socialization, and it's evolved from that. Can you talk a little bit about how the food committee itself and the work of the food committee has grown and changed?
It has changed. It's been a process. We've learned a lot along the way, all of us. One of the things we started out doing was to just document what was available in town food-wise and what services were available. One of HA's primary rules is that we're not going to duplicate what's already out there. So we needed to find out what was out there and for what we were in their catchment area. For example, Midcoast Hunger is a huge, wonderful, very supportive organization for hunger. But people in Harpswell didn't really realize that it was for them. I think in many people's minds, Midcoast Hunger was a Brunswick thing, and it really isn't. It has a huge catchment area, and we are in that catchment area. So we, when we found out that they were there and found out what they did, we started to be the link between them and the community, and to tell the community, look, this is here. It's for you. It's available. There was no food truck, for example, when Haas started. There was no food mobile that came out to Harpswell. And eventually that happened, which was a huge thing for Harpswell and the access for food. So we've always been trying to find what's out there, not just in Harpswell, but in the communities that could help us. One of the organizations that we're very involved with now, and that has been a tremendous partner in our food distribution, is called Merry Meeting Gleaners, which is a community group, and I think it comes out of Bodenham. I'm not exactly sure, but I think it's Bodenham. But it's the whole area. It's not just Bodenham, and we are again in that catchment area. They are a full volunteer group, and they go and glean from all the organic gardens in the area. And what they glean from those gardens goes right back to the community. So they were excited to find out about us and that we had some food programs going and that maybe we could help fulfill their mission by getting the food out to people in Harpswell. So that's part of what we've done, and it's been wonderfully beneficial to each of us.
Well, and back to the food truck. The food truck comes every single week now, right?
It
'Cause
does.
people might not know that.
It does come every single week now. It's at the transfer station on Thursdays. It started out being once a month, and during the pandemic that clearly was not enough. And so I don't know the logistics of how that happened, but it is now once a month.
Once a week.
I mean, once a week.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's
It's gone
great.
from once a month
That's
to once a
huge.
week. It is
Well,
huge.
And Merry Meeting Gleaners, they have things all year long, right? So it's not just
They
harvest.
glean, yes, they
yeah.
glean all year long. So we get winter food from them, you know, the root vegetables, etc., all year long. And we have many, many cooks who are willing to take that produce and turn it into something that we can put on the table.
Yeah, so how many cooks have you've started out with a handful of cooks, right? And that's really grown?
Wow, it's a miracle. It's just a miracle. We started out with something little, the mustard seed, and it's grown into this huge cadre of volunteers of all kinds. Cooks certainly, but not only cooks. We have people that run around and get food for us. We have drivers who take food to people, and we have wonderful, wonderful cooks that are there for us. It was a process, like everything else. And I guess to talk about the cooks, I have to go back and talk a little historically about what the food team did.
Yeah.
We were trying to figure out what we should do besides just documenting what was out there and linking people. We just felt that there was a need to do some definite action in Harpswell. And I was talking to a friend, everyone knows Melinda from the candy company, and I said, Melinda, who had an aging mom, I said, Melinda, do you have any ideas? What does your mom want? And Melinda said, you know what she wants? She just wants to have lunch with her friends, an occasional meal with her friends. She feels isolated. She'd like to see people. And that was it. We said, oh, wow. Well, we had a small food team at that time, and we said, you know, maybe we could do that. It was fall of 2016, and a few of the people lived on Bailey Island and were active at the ICC church, and we said, you know what? Why don't we just do a pilot? We could make this happen. Winter was coming, and winter, of course, is isolating here in Harpswell, particularly for seniors who just don't come out unless there's a reason to come out. So we took a leap of faith, and we asked individuals and some community groups if they would be willing to cook once a week for whoever comes. The Willing Helpers that owns the church on Bailey Island said, oh, of course, you can use our hall. So we said, great, we have a place for it to be, and we just started advertising. So the first one in January of 2017, I think had 20, 21 people. It was cold, it was winter, and I think those were people that we had sort of roped into coming. Well, and we had asked the cooks, who were, I think it was a community group at that point that met at the church. So they said, oh, we'll cook. And we said, just make some soup and some bread and some kind of easy dessert. That's all we need. It's just a reason to get together. So we had such a good time that people said, wow, we can do this. But do we have to make soup? I just really don't like to make soup. That's great, but I have this new recipe I want to try. And our team said, look, we don't care what you make. If you want to make it, I'm sure there'll be somebody who will eat it. So we continued with every week, and sometimes it was just a group of individuals, and sometimes it was a community group like the knitting group or a church group or the library or the fire department or a book group, all kinds of groups in town. And it just caught on. People found out about it. People started to have fun. And it's grown and grown and grown from that little seed.
Amazing. Just amazing.
Amazing. And
talk about meeting a need.
It really worked, and it was just so much fun for everybody. I think that's one of the things that's made it a success. Was it needed as far as the food is concerned? For some people, yes. But I don't think that need was as big as what we anticipated in the beginning. We thought that need was perhaps related to money. And since then, we've found that the percentage of people that need the food for money has been quite small, but that didn't mean that even someone who has a significant income is going to eat correctly. Mm-hmm. As a senior, and particularly often a senior living alone, the desire and the knowledge, interest to cook a meal every night sometimes wanes, so that we found that there were seniors of all levels, all kinds, that were resorting to a peanut butter sandwich or a bowl of cereal just because it was easy. They didn't care. And all of a sudden, they started coming to these lunches. And by the way, very early on, I think it was the second lunch, we realized we needed to have takeout containers because we could double the impact if people could take a meal home. And it became socially acceptable to do that. Everybody started taking meals home. Sometimes we had overzealous cooks, so we had so much food it was like, please, please take a takeout. We're not going to throw this food away, which developed that culture of, sure, I guess if I'm helping you out, I'll take that food home. So people started, I think, eating a little better, but the socialization thing just grew by leaps and bounds. We started out, as I said, just on Bailey Island on that 2017 winter. In the fall, we extended it to Harpswell Neck and the Grange. And guess what? It caught on there too. So fast forward to 2020, and we are now actively, well, we were before the pandemic, we were actively having lunches at Cundy's Community Hall, at the Nazarene Church on Great Island, at Orr's Island at the schoolhouse, continued on Bailey Island every week in the winter, and the Grange. So we've hit the 5 areas of town. And in all of those, obviously there's takeout too.
Well, and don't some people take out then for people who are shut in, so it becomes, and,
Definitely.
or who didn't know about it, so that also becomes a way that
Definitely.
then more people learn about the fabulous quality. And well,
That's how the takeout really started. We had somebody who said, you know, I'm not going to be able to get my neighbor to come. A lot of people have brought their neighbors, their friends, and that's been wonderful. But there are some people that can't get out or just really aren't interested in trying it. Some of those people eventually come around, but some of them, we just decided we're not going to stand on that hill. You know, there's no sense in us taking the high road on the saying, you know, you have to get here. I know you can get here. We said, look, if it gets you the meal, that's fine. So we had neighbors who said, I have this gentleman who lives in my neighborhood. I'll take food to him every time.
perfect.
So that's how that started.
Well, and the noise level?
Oh my gosh. We used to laugh. At the people who were working the event, we would say, I think it's hit the rest. We said we wish we had a decimal reader so that we could hear, because it was quite something. As a matter of fact, we were concerned because one of our goals in this was to disseminate information about services that seniors could avail themselves of. So we usually gave a few announcements. We kept them brief and friendly, and people made community announcements, etc. But we realized that nobody was listening. Nobody. We would get up and it was like, hello. I have 2 things to tell you. It's just practical things. So we said, we're dealing with a senior population. Perhaps they are having trouble hearing because it's very noisy in here. So we bought a microphone. Well, we learned quickly that wasn't the issue, or it certainly wasn't the only issue. It was just that people loved getting together. I'll tell you one cute story. One elderly fisherman was sort of roped into coming by his friend. And he had been living alone. His wife had died, and he was very lonely. And he probably wasn't eating what he should be eating. And he was just not very happy. And his friend encouraged him to come. And he said, I don't know about this. You know, I don't know if I'm going to know anybody. Well, he soon became a regular, and he was soon taking takeout containers home. And he's saying, you gals, you're doing a good job here. And he just loved it. And he would laugh and he'd say, I don't know what this food is. I have no idea what it is, but it's sort of good.
So you broadened out what he ate.
So we broadened out what we ate, but he just was happy, and he was looking forward every week to seeing some of his old cronies, and that group of guys that he would sit with, and there were a few women, but most of these were groups of guys. It expanded, and so now that gentleman, along with many other people who come, has a support system that has grown exponentially. Mm-hmm. If he didn't show up for lunch, there would be 5 people saying, where is he? Where is he? Maybe I'll check on him on my way home. Or, you know, I called him before I came. He's got a cold. I'm going to bring him some lunch. So
Great. All about community.
It's
Wow.
all about community.
It's fabulous.
It's just great.
Well, and so then you started out with a few cooks, but then people started hearing about it, or they would come themselves. Because didn't you get some people who were sort of new to town who then started helping you too?
Definitely. We've gotten new cooks a lot of ways. One way is that after the second winter, that was when we were really first going full steam ahead in 2018, we were very successful in lots of areas of town. And we usually don't do this in the summer. We all know what summer's like here. It's busy. We worried that we wouldn't get the people coming, and we also wouldn't have the volunteers because everybody's busy. Everyone has company. So we weren't planning on doing anything in the summer of 2018. But as spring came, we realized how much people were counting on this. And while most of them were going to be just fine, their socialization was going to be there for them in the summer, which brings along food too. Mm-hmm. But we realized that there were some people that we were concerned about and that we felt would continue to need the actual food and the interaction, even if it's minimal, during the summer. And so we started a program called Meals in a Pinch, which would provide both emergency meals, so that if somebody went into the hospital or who had a spouse that was sick or a caregiver who couldn't come, that we could get a meal to them immediately. But there were also people that we just knew needed to have that regular meal, that they weren't going to do it or couldn't do it. And so we were worried that we wouldn't be able to get cooks, and we started a cooking group. The Kellogg Church let us use their lovely kitchen, and so every 2 weeks we would gather, and there would be a half a dozen to 8 people that would just gather together and cook for the Meals in a Pinch program. Well, that attracted people who loved to cook, but also a lot of new people in town came in, and somebody said, oh, this would be a way to meet people. So they would come and enjoy cooking. And next thing you know, they were involved, and they were talking to their friends, and they were joining the food committee, and it just continued to be the miracle grow that we...
Well, so that's the thing. It not only grew with the number of people who took the food and enjoyed the food,
Right.
but it grew in the people preparing it and working on it and planning. That's amazing.
And I have to say, it's an everybody win thing. It's I think in the beginning we thought, oh, wouldn't it be nice to do this food thing for people who need food? I don't think we had any concept of what it was going to give to every person involved in it. Not only do you feel good that you're doing something for somebody else, but you've met people, you've become part of town, you get involved in organizations, you have new friends. The happiness factor for every aspect of those involved is dramatic.
Yeah, absolutely.
You walk into lunch with friends, and as we said, it's not only loud, but there are smiles everywhere. We started taking pictures of each event, and part of it was to prove to everybody that we had a good time, that people weren't sitting there saying, I don't know anybody, I'm not comfortable, I'm feeling isolated, nobody will sit with me, you know, the old high school cafeteria kind of thing. That didn't happen. Everybody just had fun.
Well, and you do name tags too,
We
right?
did name tags.
So-
We always wear name tags. We're all senior citizens, pretty much, who are into it. Although we don't advertise that it's for seniors. The fact that it's during the week and at noon means that it's mostly seniors. But if someone comes and brings their grandchild, it's wonderful. And And we had children of seniors who were thrilled to have an event that they could take their mother or father to, something social that they could get them out. Mm-hmm. And we had some people who had some different kind of physical and emotional handicaps whose caregivers said, oh my gosh, this person waits for Tuesday or Thursday, our lunch days, every week. It's their time that they can go out and socialize. And so the caregivers would bring them.
That's just great.
So
just amazing. Well, and then along came COVID-19.
Oh, it certainly did.
What a shock.
It came so fast. I think we were all caught off guard. Our Lunch with Friends season was going gangbusters. All 5 locations, busier than it's ever been before. We were going like crazy the first week of March, and it hit. And I think we had maybe 3 events at the beginning of March, and it became clear that, oh my goodness, socializing is not something we're supposed to be doing. Gathering together in small halls close to each other, which was such an asset in the beginning, was a liability. So we canceled 1 week's worth of events and said, what are we going to do now? It isn't like the need isn't going to be there. And as a matter of fact, we were sure the need was going to expand because there were a lot of independent seniors, people who were out there going to the market, going every place, that all of a sudden, because of underlying conditions and vulnerabilities, weren't going anywhere. And so the need was going to grow. We were concerned and continue to be concerned about the financial implications of COVID on lots of people. So we said, we've got to do something, and we've got to do something fast. Well, luckily we had Meals in a Pinch to draw on. Had already done a takeout program, really. The Meals in a Pinch was a delivery program. We certainly weren't going to be able to have cooking groups that prepared the food, but we were going strong with individual cooks and support groups, and actually had a few more scheduled. And so we contacted those people and those organizations and asked if they would be willing to cook and drop off if we did a delivery program. And those groups and individuals, by and large, said, I would love to. We do have a contract employee, Julie, who is just astounding in every way. She was on the internet immediately, before we even made decisions, researching everything. What do we have to do? How do we prepare food safely? How do we package food safely? How do we deliver it safely? Can we do this? So within a week, we just flipped from in-house to takeout. And we started out with quite a few. We encouraged anybody who had any concerns about going to town to use it. So it opened up a whole group of people who had never even tried Lunch with Friends before. And it brought people who had been hesitant to try Lunch with Friends. It brought them out. Everybody was worried, and here was a lifeline. So we did this from St. Patrick's Day, March 17th was our first one, through June 30th. Well, I say 100% takeout. The food was 100% takeout, but some people did come and pick up their food. We, at the highest number, had 170 people that we were giving food to, 170 individuals. we decided it was important to get them whatever food we could procure. So sometimes they got 2 meals, sometimes they got 3 meals each, sometimes even more than that. We found that the cooks, and probably in 2020 at the beginning, we had maybe 200 people who had cooked for us. That's a lot of cooks. Mm-hmm. I haven't counted now, but I bet it's definitely 300. People came out of the woodwork, and the minute they heard we were doing this, our phones were ringing off the hook. I make a mean chili. Can I make some cookies? Whatever. It was just amazing. So we sent out protocols of how they had to cook and to keep it safe, how they had to deliver it. We had a small group of in-house people who would do the receiving, disinfecting, packaging in a safe way. We kept the numbers really low in-house because we were concerned about our safety as well. But it worked. We kept thinking we were going to get shut down because something was going to happen. But we never got shut down. We just kept going.
What about the lobster stories?
Oh, the lobster story is a good one. That was right in the beginning, right in March. A Harpswell citizen came to, I think, Ann Taft, who's on our team, and said, Ann, I've been looking and following the lobstermen. I'm really concerned about the lobstermen. It looks like they're going to be hit hard through this pandemic, and their business is going to suffer. If I gave you $200, would you go buy lobster from one of the local lobstermen? So we said, sure. So that day, we went and bought $100 worth on one side of town, $100 worth on another side of town. We put an email out to our cooks and said, is anyone willing to cook and pick lobster and then make something of it? Well, we had lots of people say, sure, I'd be glad to do that. Well, the $200 eventually became $500. We ate a lot of lobster. I kept laughing because I remember when we first moved to Bailey Island and all the stories about lobsters and how people would say, oh, it was the poor man's food, that they used to give it to the people in prisons, et cetera. And there was a rule that I think there's still a rule on the books, you can't give it to prisoners more than twice a week. That's great. And here we were, just inundated with lobster and passing it out to everyone.
That's great.
So it was great.
That's another win-win, right? Everybody.
It's another win-win, but it wasn't the only donation like that. We had another concerned citizen call us up and said, I'd like to support this restaurant. I'll give you $1,000 to use at that restaurant. So we worked with the restaurant to create meals that were appropriate for what we were doing. And so for I think 5 weeks, we had meals from this restaurant. We had another local establishment that someone was concerned about, and they said, okay, anything that you get from this place, I will pay for. So we went to them and said, what can you do? And they said, oh, we have a turkey in the freezer. I can make you turkey soup. I could make you turkey sandwiches. I could, so, and it's just kept a-rolling.
That's wonderful. So there's one more whole group of small businesses in Harpswell that have been helped through COVID. So if you think about the ways that HA and specifically the food team at HA has responded to COVID, some of the initiatives have helped businesses, restaurants, individuals, cooks, people with a lot of time on their hands. So it's really incredibly broad.
Yeah. Some of the cooks have called me up and said, please don't say I can't cook. I need this for my mental health. So, I think we've all needed something for our mental health as well as our physical health. So.
Well, it's just an amazing, amazing story. So then what was, I think I interrupted you, what was your final number then from St. Patrick's Day to the end of June?
For the takeout meals, we had 5,555.
Whoa.
5,555. That's a lot of meals. A lot of meals. I was looking back at some statistics for a report that I was writing, and I checked in 2017 when we did our pilot project, and then we continued to do a few more in the fall. We were so excited because we did 655 meals, which was exciting. I checked what we have delivered or served between January and June 30th, and we did 6,500 and something meals.
10 times.
So it's
Just
amazing.
phenomenal.
But you know, it's not only the meals, as we've talked about, it's the happiness quotient, it's the camaraderie, it's the community feeling. People who have moved here and gotten involved with HA, and I've been talking about the food program, but there are other programs that serve the community as well that have inspired people. Some of the new people have come back to me and said, "This is the best town ever. I love this town. I am so glad I lived here. This is wonderful." It just makes people happy.
Well, and you spoke to this, but your volunteers come from all 5 areas, and your volunteers come from people who have been here for generations, as well as people who moved here 2 months ago. It's phenomenal.
And those people from all different areas are getting to know everybody from all the other areas. And it's shrinking the town as far as connections are concerned. Mm-hmm. And the town people, I think, are realizing that we have a treasure here. It's every part of Harpswell is a treasure. And it's our job to be part of that treasure and to do what it says.
Mm. Well, and you started to talk about some of the other things that HA does. Can you talk about that a little more too?
Sure, I hope I don't leave anybody out. But HA has been a very busy organization. We're very excited that we have been in existence for 5 years now. It seems like a miracle. And it started as just a few people, and it's grown to hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of volunteers involved in different areas. One of the very exciting parts has been home maintenance repair. I don't want to give a number, but I know that there are over 70 houses that they have rehabbed and made safe, warm, and dry so that those seniors can stay in their homes absolutely as long as possible. We've been here long enough to see that play out, and the gratitude from some of these people who would not have been able to stay in their beloved house, in their beloved town, is amazing and obviously makes us keep going. So the home maintenance and repair has been a big part of it. Another big part of that is our resource team. The resource team helps people find whatever services are out there for them, whether it has to do with finances, town services, medical services, all kinds of areas. So that's a huge benefit. Transportation, we all know that we're really isolated out here in Harpswell, and you can't really live here easily if you have trouble driving, whether it's temporarily or long-term. And so the transportation system that we collaborate with People Plus, another organization that is located in Brunswick, but has a large catchment area. And when we started, very, very few people in Harpswell had any idea that they were eligible for these free rides. All they had to do was ask for them. And the other thing is there weren't any drivers. So now we have drivers and riders, all free to whoever wants them. We have a chores committee that is willing to work outside right now during the pandemic to help seniors with outdoor chores. We have a health and wellness committee. And the Health and Wellness Committee does lots of things, a lot of connections with health and wellness organizations and issues. They also do a lot of education. And we have, through them, a group of people called Seniors Connecting, who call seniors at least once a week and just talk, just keep in touch and keep them informed about what's going on in town and what might be available for them should they need it. So it's just an information source. And I have to say that I think one of the things that HA has done extremely well is the communications situation. From the beginning, we've had a very active communications team so that we've been able to get out to the community what is available. The whole time we were working through this pandemic, the communications team was researching what was available to Harpswell people in the way of food, absentee ballots, what if you need durable medical equipment, what if you have questions about how to go to the grocery store, what if you can't go shopping? They had answers to all those things. And so we put them in our bags every week, sending them out to those 140 to 170 people so that they could know that as well. We're on Facebook and we have a great website so that people who want to know anything about HA and other organizations, it's not just HA, it's organizations that support seniors in Harpswell.
Yeah, that's really important.
So,
that's so great.
I think that's pretty much the committee right now. We have a new committee that's starting up that will be working on senior issues and legislative issues. The whole world is trying to figure out how to make senior living affordable, safe, etc. And so this group is going to be working on that.
Yeah, that's really good too.
Yeah.
Well, you have made such a huge difference in Harpswell. So I mean, it's just amazing to me. You've said what makes Harpswell special to you is that sense of community, and you have certainly added to that sense of community by redefining a little bit of what we have as a senior community through Harpswell Aging at Home. But talk a little bit more about how you've seen the changes. You've seen more community, but even since the time that you've been living here full time to now, you've seen a lot of change with the demographics in general, right?
Yes, I certainly can't speak to a long term. I'm definitely short term. I think there are things that we all are concerned about. This is a very, very special way of life. There's no doubt about it. Moving up from Connecticut to here, I felt it immediately. When you go to the doctor's office, people are so friendly and so helpful, and they want to chat you up, as we say. I mean, everybody talks. They're very professional, there's no doubt about that. But they're social too. And you just get a feeling here that people really care and are there for you. That's a special way of life. And it takes work to make that. I think we've seen an increase in the ability to do that. Ha has made a definite impact on the community, but everybody has to stay involved. I think we're all concerned about our small businesses. When we first moved to Bailey Island, the general store had to close, and it was closed for a year and a half. The impact of living that far out with nothing until you got to either the vegetable corner, if it was open, or to town, it is difficult and isolating. It has lots of psychological as well as physical ramifications. So I worry about our small businesses, and I think we have to work hard to support our fishermen and to support our local stores, and make sure that they're still there for us.
Well, so this has been an amazing hour, and we're coming toward the end of it. So I just wonder
Wow.
of your general thoughts, and is there anything that we haven't covered that you want to talk about? Some of the comments people have made or things that you're feeling?
Well, I just feel so blessed to be here in Harpswell, and I think I'm not alone in that. I hear it over and over and over again. One of my favorite quotes from a woman during this pandemic was that she said in an email to thank us all for getting her some food. She said, you know, when I grew up, Christmas was once a year. But she said, here in Harpswell, we have Christmas every single Tuesday.
Oh.
And I feel a little bit like that all the time. We have this magical gift here, and it's in the people. It certainly is outside. I mean, we can look at it, and it's beautiful and wonderful just to be here every day. But it's in the people, and the people getting together, and I just feel so, so lucky to have been part of it and to experienced it and watch other people experience it, because that's a gift too.
Lovely. Thank you so much for being here, Surrey. That's just great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey ho, roll and go around Cape Horn to San Francisco. Shantyman, sing, boys, pull on the line, and we're back in record time. Now at Bath down in Maine, they built many tall ships. They were paired up and flanked and launched down the slips. The strength of our nation was built on the pine of the mast trees that harnessed the wind. There were schooners and sloops and all kinds of small craft. There were warships with cannon both forward and aft, and the queens of the seas, Downeasters and Clippers, mighty proud men were their skippers. With their hey-ho